Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Good evening. I'm your host, Lindsey Davis Stover. Welcome to the Inside Scoop. We've got a great show tonight. We're going to be doing different interviews with candidates all over the area. And tonight we're starting off the show with Tia Walbridge. Tia is running for Supervisor, Blue Ridge Supervisor in Loudoun County. Tia, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Tia, and why you decided to run for Supervisor.
Absolutely. I'm a sheep farmer in Western Loudoun. I have a small business as well. I have two girls that are about to be fourth graders, a fourth grader and a seventh grader. So I am really just always been a very involved member of my community, Girl Scout leader, and we're volunteering with our local service units and building my businesses and raising my girls, growing my farm. But after the 2016 election, really in the wrap-up following that, I listened to a whole lot of pundits and talking heads for weeks, as I know everybody did, theorizing about that election and what had happened and why Democrats lost. And their favorite theory was that we lost because we were not in the local community, because we were not part of the local community or connected enough to it. And every time I heard it, it made me more and more frustrated because nothing could be further from the truth. We are the local community. We are Girl Scout leaders. We are homeroom dads. We are the small business owner down the street bringing you your eggs twice a month. What we weren't prior to 2016, at least in my rural district, we were not on your doorstep. We were not your elected official. And that's something we've spent a lot of time in the last 2 years changing, knocking an awful lot of doors and listening to everybody, talking to everybody, and making sure that we're focused on the things that the community needs us to be focused on, and also just giving a local level face to our previously just national level party. That local connection is so incredibly vital and something I think we have to work to rebuild.
Absolutely. All politics are local.
Absolutely. And it's where you make the biggest difference in everybody's life.
It is.
So,
it is. And you are so active in your community. Tell us a little bit about your district. What does your district look like, and what areas does it encompass?
Absolutely. It is the largest of the supervisor districts other than the chair by far. It is Western Loudoun, so it's Round Hill, Hillsborough, Percival, Middleburg. But it also stretches east along Route 50 and picks up Aldie and actually crosses Loudoun County Parkway. So it really exemplifies the balance that is Loudoun County. My family came here when I was pregnant with my oldest 13 years ago. And we moved here because my husband works in intelligence and space technology, and we wanted him to be able to work within a good hour at most commute from a working farm, because that was our dream, to raise our girls on our farm. And that's a high thing to ask for in this day and age. So Loudoun is able to offer that. We have suburban communities, steady employers for high-tech jobs right on our doorstep, and then we have active agriculture. So that's great. Blue Ridge is a perfect example.
A beautiful district.
It is.
Too.
It's gorgeous.
It is beautiful. And you talk so eloquently about the difference in parts of your district and even in Loudoun County. Can you talk a little bit more about ensuring that the areas that are rural, that their voices are heard, their challenges are often heard and met, and that they have a fighter? Can you talk a little bit about that divide?
Absolutely. It's what got me into the race really was just seeing the lack of strong leadership and representation for the rural community in Loudoun County. The board, or some members of the board, love to pay lip service to what the rural community provides for Loudoun, the high quality of life, whether you're just taking your kids to Wegmeyer's, or you're taking your kids to Great Country Farms to go picking on the weekend, or enjoying our wineries, or just benefiting from the fact our lack of development out there holds everyone's property taxes lower. Either way, Western Loudoun brings so much to Loudoun County as a whole, and we love to talk about that, but we don't love to put really active programs in place to help keep that. And we're losing our farmlands pretty rapidly right now. We've lost almost 13,000 acres in the last couple of years. So it's really disappearing quickly, and we need to support the small farmers that are still doing active agriculture. And that's what I want to do.
And you're actually a member too of the Farm Bureau.
I serve on the board of Loudoun County Farm Bureau locally. I serve in the state level. I'm an appointee to the Virginia Agricultural Council. So I get to work on ag and ag preservation from both the state and the local level. And that's very much what I hope to bring to the board is that expertise.
That's great. And I know you mentioned earlier knocking on doors.
Oh, yes.
What are you hearing on the doors? What are the challenges that people are really struggling with and talking about their dinner table every night?
Absolutely. So I think all of the challenges I hear in Loudoun County, for the most part, are linked to kind of one overriding factor. And I do have a lot of eastern area in my district as well, and we see it affecting everything there too, and that is how rapidly we have developed in Loudoun County. Developed without the infrastructure in place to really support that development. Whether you're in the eastern portion of the district, you moved here for our schools, and you find your kids in classrooms that are overcrowded, or you find your kids in a school where they have to move, in some cases up to 3 times during an elementary school career. It's very disruptive to the progress of the child. Or whether it's how congested our roads have become because we didn't put in place the infrastructure we needed before we put the development there. On a door this weekend, a man asked me why there weren't more parks in his area. He lives in Ashburn, and he was asking me why it was so hard to find green space and parks, and that's because we built without setting that aside properly. It's community planning and making sure that the communities we approve and build have the ability to be walkable and interconnected and are planned how they're going to connect to the surrounding area. It's really important, whether you're in the east or the west. And in the west, we really see it in the loss of farmland and the loss of green space.
That's great. And you talk a lot about that connectivity, which is incredibly important as you plan ahead. What are the top priorities that you want to fight for if you're elected to this position?
Absolutely. Well, certainly slowing the pace of growth in Loudoun County and getting a handle on our infrastructure, that is absolutely a top priority to me. But also being proactive about supporting our rural community, not just saying how nice it is to have all the benefits from it, but working to put in place the conservation programs that we need to be able to keep that farmlands so that my daughter can inherit my farm and not be across the street from a housing development necessarily, or a big box store down the street. We really want to keep the rural heritage alive, but also then backing it up with supporting our farmers with farmers markets that work for them, that they can afford to use, that are right here in Loudoun County, and connect them with their customer base. There's so much we could and should be doing, but we have to lead on it.
That's right, that's right. And when you talk a little bit about rural politics and rural priorities, how are those sometimes different? And in many ways, how are they not represented either at the local, state, or federal level?
So at the local level is where we can really do the most for it, because Richmond can increase the dollars for conservation programs. They do cost matching, but they cannot make the locality take advantage of those programs, which is why I said I would run, because we aren't taking advantage of the programs that exist in Loudoun County. So the challenge is to make sure that we're using the conservation programs. There are 3 biggies, and Loudoun County has not used them, but many of our surrounding counties do take advantage of them. And so it's money we are leaving on the table coming from Richmond.
Wow.
Yeah, which is unfortunate.
That's important, absolutely. And you mentioned earlier on that you really decided to run after the election in 2016. Can you talk a little bit about the enthusiasm and the activism out in your district? Because it's been remarkable.
It really has.
Tell us a little bit about what's going on out there.
Well, I say that before 2016, people like me, we all thought we were the lone blue dot in a sea of red.
Sure.
And there was not a single Democratic yard sign out by me. However, after the last 2 years, we have been organizing, we have been knocking on doors. When we started knocking knocking in 2017, we used to get all the time, oh my God, I've never had a Democrat on my doorstep before. And then by the end of that election cycle, we were already hearing people say, no, we got it. We're going to vote for you. You don't have to come back and bug us again.
That's great.
But it's just continued over the last few years, and now you see yard signs everywhere, and we have volunteers showing up to knock doors every single weekend in the East and the West. So it has really made a community where one just didn't know that it existed before.
Which is so important.
Yeah.
As you said, I mean, we've been in the communities, we just haven't been on people's doorsteps.
That's exactly
we
right.
haven't been in elected office, and so that's critical. And I know you are actively working every single day, whether it be as a Girl Scout troop leader, community volunteer, or also on your campaign. Can you talk a little bit about some of the efforts that you're really working and focusing on the campaign?
So on the campaign, the biggest things we're working on, of course, are volunteer recruiting to help with door knocking, and working to find people who want to get more active in some of the newer neighborhoods in my district.
Fantastic.
We have neighborhoods that haven't been there for years yet, really.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a rapidly growing region in Loudoun County, so of course reaching the new people that have come in to hear from them, to hear the things they want us to be focusing on, to hear what they need help with and what their concerns are, but then also inviting them to get involved with the campaign and join us. So that's kind of the biggest thing we're
fantastic.
working on.
And it's so important to make sure that people feel like they have a community. And you know, we've seen time and time again, neighbors talking to neighbors can be the most effective approach in really building that connectivity. I know you're knocking doors.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the other efforts that you're doing to help reach out to people that you hope to represent.
Well, we're going to, of course, community meetings. We are holding meet and greets, is what we call them, where people invite me into their home and usually with their neighbors and their friends, so that I can hear firsthand from more people, and then they can really get to know me a little bit better than the 2 minutes on the doorstep.
Sure.
But we're doing an awful lot of that kind of activity to get people engaged and involved as well.
Oh, good. Tell us a little bit about where people can go to learn more about you and learn about ways that they can get involved in the efforts.
So my website is tia4va.com, and it's the number 4, and VA like the state. And then we're, of course, on Facebook as well, and Twitter. All of it is Tia4VA, so very simple. But we definitely post about all of our upcoming events and activities, and we keep the website updated as well. So love to have people come and join the team.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for
Thank you
being
so much. I appreciate
with
it.
us tonight. It's so important that we learn as much as we can about our local elections and who's running for office. And I know it's an incredible sacrifice for you to make, so thank you for doing it.
It's worth it.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Nice going, Spencer! I can't believe we broke Old Man Hennessy's window.
Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball.
This is really bad. What are we gonna do?
We? Go to the door, ask for the ball back.
Are you serious?
It's my ball, Myrtlebeck.
You're so dead. I'd run away.
Yeah, to Uruguay.
Kiss your life goodbye. Sorry.
Let's go. See you, dude. See ya. Remember me and your well.
Nice one. Some friends you are. Hi. Tell him it was an accident. And we can fix the window. Come on. I'll come with you.
Loyalty. Pass it on.
You go first.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Well, it's a matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try.
Only you.
Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Awkward.
I'm the awkward silence.
You try to avoid me, then there I am again. But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Lindsey Davis Stover. And our second interview tonight is with Mavis Taintor, who's running for delegate. And Mavis, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, you're so welcome.
I'd love to learn a little bit more about you, our viewers to learn more about you, and why you decided to run for state delegate.
Well, I was a teacher for many years, and then I moved on to business and had a long stint and a successful one at big American banks like JP Morgan and Citibank. And then I got really smart and opened my own business, which was a financial management business, and grew that until it had about $4 billion of assets under management. I sold it, and then I did what I'd been wanting to do for years. I moved immediately to Virginia, to Northern Virginia.
That's fantastic. And tell us a little bit about why you decided to run for delegate.
I ran because I had a son who died of an overdose from heroin and fentanyl. And I had a choice. I could have sat in my living room and felt sorry for myself, or I could have gotten up and really gotten something done. And I chose to want to get to Richmond because I want all Virginia families to have access to decent health care. And that is why I'm running.
That's fantastic. Tell us a little bit about your district, what your district encompasses, and who you're working to represent.
Well, I'm working to represent all the people in the 33rd District. And it's kind of a fun district because about 70% of the vote is in Western Loudoun, which is a very becoming suburban / already a rural area. And it's facing all the influx from the suburbs of Washington. So it's changing. Western Loudoun keeps changing all the time. New people keep coming in and in. And then my district goes west over the mountains, over the Shenandoah River, and into the Shenandoah Valley, and picks up almost all of Clark and Frederick counties, which are just the most gorgeous places on the earth.
Absolutely. So your district looks more of Western Loudoun, and then over into Clark and Frederick counties.
Yes, just up to Winchester.
Okay. That's fantastic. It's just a beautiful, beautiful area. And I know you are very involved in your community. Can you talk a little bit about the work you do in the community every single day?
Well, yes, there's just so much of it, I guess. I've been very involved with the rural issues and the farming issues in the area I live in. I live in a small town called Waterford, and so we have a family farm.
Go ahead.
And so it's a horse farm, and that keeps me very active. I attend the farm board meetings. I'm very active with the local farmers in my area in terms of issues that relate to anything from taxes to your wells and how well you have water, how much water you have in your wells, and everything in between. So there's always a great deal going in the community around the farms. And then in terms of politics, I've been out knocking doors for just years and years in my district. I've been very involved with the Democratic Party organization, doing various things with them and for them, and then working for so many wonderful candidates. And we've had such success over the last few years. It's been very exciting.
That's fantastic. And I know you are very well known in the community because of all of the community work that you do and how active you've been in politics. Tell me a little bit, because I know you've been knocking a lot of doors and have been for years. What are you hearing on the doorsteps that are the main challenges that people in your district are facing right now?
Well, forever, teachers and teacher pay has been a big issue at the doors. Everyone loves their teachers, and everyone wants their teachers to be well taken care of. And we've really not been keeping up with teacher pay. So we tend to lose a lot of our teachers. When they've been in the system 10 or 15 years, they tend to move anywhere, to Pennsylvania or Chicago, because they can get much better pay, and they can afford to live there. And so our teachers have the issue of it's hard to live in the places where they work because they can't afford to live in the places where they work. And I think that's really the big issue for the 33rd District that people really are talking about at the dinner table. Whether you're a policeman or a carpenter or a nurse or a teacher, you really have a hard time living in Loudoun County because it's so expensive. And so what you do is you tend to live in West Virginia, or you go way west out towards Winchester, way west in Clark and Frederick counties, which means you can afford to live there nicely. You have a good job way east, but you're in a car 5+ hours a day commuting. And those are parents who should be home with their children. And so it's a real issue for families, the whole family, to basically lose their parents early in the morning and you don't see them again until maybe after dinner. So it's something we have to do better and get right in the 33rd District.
And such a sacrifice for an entire family,
Yes.
it sounds like.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of parents missing, critical time at the dinner table or helping
at the
with
school.
homework.
Yes, right.
That's incredible. And so, because you have been so involved in your community and you're so in touch with the local issues, tell me a little bit about what you will be a champion for if elected.
Well, I'll be a champion for all the people. I love knocking doors. I love going to events, talking to people, asking them about their issues. So I feel I'm going to be a very strong voice for everyone in the 33rd District when I'm in Richmond. And the issues I've been concentrating on, we've just been talking about teacher pay. I'm going to get right on that. I think we can do so much better with teacher pay. I think we can start promoting small businesses out west in the 33rd District, so we can start growing good businesses that can hire people locally, pay them a good living wage, so they aren't going to have to be commuting 100 miles east every day. So I really am excited about working on those issues.
So it sounds like transportation is probably
transportation
key
will
in
be
your
in,
area too.
It's going to be in the mix, and we have to figure that out. People have to be able to commute from the area around Winchester east, and doing it exclusively in their car is just really hard. And I think we can do a lot better with buses and different modes of transportation, always the car, but offering people other modes of transportation also.
Absolutely. And you bring such incredible experience to the table, having worked in business for so many years, being an entrepreneur yourself, and so wanting to prioritize growing small businesses, I think is something that you obviously have a lot of experience with. Can you talk a little bit about some of the efforts that you would champion and promote to help grow the small businesses in your district?
Yes, I think there are some really low-cost, simple things we could do for businesses. If you're going to open a business in Western Loudoun, Clark, or Frederick, you have to have some seed money, right? You got to have some money in the bank. And what happens to people, whether it's a restaurant or whether it's a carpentry shop or whatever, it can take so long to get through all the different steps you have to get through to get certified in terms of this and that and the other, and the right people have to come in and certify, and sometimes we don't even have people to certify something that needs to get certified. You can spend a lot of time just to open your business and use up all your seed capital. And so we have to be very careful that we are able to provide some upside funding for people when they're thinking of starting a business, to be able to backstop them a little bit. These are tiny bits of money, but they would be very helpful. And then being able to speed up the process of opening a small business. And I know we could do that. We would work with the Board of Supervisors, we would work with the local towns, we would work with the state. There are so many ways we could start to fix that issue of how long it takes to open a business. And once we're there and the businesses are opening, there's a wonderful base of people to draw on, to hire. So we've got fabulous people to hire. And I think it'll start to work better for families and working families, and for children, for everyone.
Absolutely. And I know parts of your district too, one of the top priorities is expanding broadband access.
Yes.
And that will obviously help support small businesses as well. Can you talk a little bit about that issue? Because I know it is important to parts of your district.
Yes. For the rural parts of my district, and interestingly, even in Western Loudoun, people have a hard time making a phone call from their houses like me, or you have no internet at all, or you have it and it comes and goes and it's incredibly expensive. So you have to make some choices. Are you really going to be able to afford having some kind of broadband in your house, or are you going to choose not to go with broadband? And when you get out into the really rural areas, so many people literally don't have broadband. I talked to a woman recently who was getting older, had retired, wanted to downsize her house and move to a smaller house near her children. She couldn't sell her house because, number one, she couldn't get broadband in the house, and number two, she couldn't get cell phone coverage in her house. And she is stuck living in her house and can't move. And so it hits so many segments of society. Kids trying to do homework. If you don't have broadband in the house, the family is to get in the car and drive to some place, a parking lot usually, or go to the library when they have evening hours, and provide a place where the children can get internet access. And think how disruptive that is to family life. Think how, one parent has to stay home with some kids and another parent is driving children to a parking lot, and they sit there and they're doing their homework.
Wow.
And if the parents can't manage that, the children just fall behind because they can't keep up with their homework. The internet is that important. And small businesses can't survive without internet. This is a global world. Business is global.
Yes.
And you have to be tuned in by internet.
Well, and it sounds like it affects everything.
Everything.
Your business, your children's education, health care.
Yes.
It's such an important issue. Now, I know there is some incredible things happening in your district right now, and the level of energy and activism is high. Can you talk a little bit about that and what people are doing to make sure that they can connect with their neighbors in your district?
Well, yes, I think there is a lot of activism going on. I think people have suddenly opened their doors and want to talk to people on their own block. It's really interesting.
That's great.
And getting to know each other. And we talk about how politicized everything is, but in some ways I think that's sort of being stripped away, because when people on the block get together and they're having a block party or a party in somebody's house, they start to talk about just basic issues like, what's happening in our school. And it turns out everybody's on the same side. All parents want the best for their children.
Right.
There's nothing political about it. They want the best for their children. And it's same on all these issues. These are what people want to talk about. So they get together, get to know each other, and it works really well.
That's great. And if people want to learn more about you, can you tell them where they could find that information out?
Yes, we're very active on Facebook. We're very active on Twitter. I have a website, so they find me at mavisfordelegate.com.
That's great.
If you just go into social media, you'll find me.
Thank you so much. We'll be right back.
Your time is gonna come. Your time is gonna come. It's up to you to reach out to be that friend who comes along. Your day is gonna come.
When you make a friend, you make a difference.
Your day is gonna come.
Friendship, pass it on. A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Good one, son.
Last summer, my new dad took me on vacation. First, we went deep sea fishing. Wow!
I'm so proud of you, son.
And then we went on Thunder Shark. That was awesome! Let's go again. 3 times. I gotta say, it was pretty cool.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are.
What's it feel like when a woman's having a heart attack? Chest pain, like there's a ton of weight on your chest. Severe shortness of breath. Unexplained nausea. Cold sweats. There's an unusual tiredness and fatigue. There's unfamiliar dizziness or lightheadedness. Unusual pain in your back, neck, jaw, one or both arms, even your upper stomach are signs you're having a heart attack. Don't make excuses. Make the call to 911 immediately. Learn more at womenshealth.gov/heartattack.
Operation Wonder Park is a go!
There's nothing more powerful than imagination.
Honey, have you seen my cell phone?
But don't just imagine.
My park came to life?
Ooh, a plot twist.
Use STEM to build, create.
She did it.
And change the world.
Who's with me?
I'm more of a 2 feet on the ground kind of guy.
It's gonna hurt tomorrow.
If she can STEM, so can you. Find out more at She Can STEM.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Lindsey Davis Stover. And I have with me tonight Mark Wolfe, who's a city council member in Manassas and also running for state delegate in District 50. Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Mark.
I am a product of the Midwest. Graduated from the University of Iowa, met my wife, been married coming up almost on 40 years now.
That's great.
Had 2 kids. Typical business career, worked my way up the corporate ladder, ended up getting transferred to Northern Virginia, moved to Manassas 29 years ago, worked, became involved in the ballet, which you know a little bit about, and had my corporate career, had our 2 children, raised our children here, and then eventually got involved politically in 2007, actually.
So you were first elected to the city council in 2007?
May of 2008.
May of 2008. Fantastic. And tell us a little bit about what prompted your decision to originally run for public office.
My decision to run for office was literally a group of people sitting in my family room talking about our community, and we were all concerned about our community and the direction it was going. And we all had pretty much general agreement as to the issues. And then there was agreement that we have to affect change, you have to have political action, which requires a candidate. So starting with the gentleman on my left, we went around the room, and everyone had a really good reason why they couldn't run for office. And it got back to me, and you know this story, but my son had been killed the year before in Iraq. And I felt as though I could not do any less than what we had taught our children, which was to be willing to serve and to sacrifice for the greater good. And so I decided to run.
That's fantastic. And as a city council member, what have been something that you're most proud of? What are the projects that you're most proud of? And what?
There's a lot.
Tell us about what you've brought to the community.
I'm really thrilled. I mean, if I tell the story that when we first moved to Manassas, you could shoot a cannon down Center Street and not hit anyone or anything. We've had a renaissance in the last 10 or 11 years. It's become a really vibrant, fascinating place. The old town is energized. There's the restaurants. It's little things. I tell people you can't find a pothole in Manassas. We pave our streets. We have great utilities, which sounds really, mundane. But that's part of the quality of life that residents are looking for. And it's part of the quality of life that businesses are looking for. We've been working to attract businesses. We've been working to improve the quality of life through culture, the Hilton Performing Arts Center. We've been working to fund schools. So, we've really come a long ways to make Manassas a far better community than it was many, many years ago.
And all the issues that you touched on are the issues that actually affect people's everyday life.
Yes.
And I think whether you're talking about the potholes, to the education, to the vibrant downtown, I mean, that is why people love Manassas, love to live there and love to visit. So those are not just mundane issues. Those are issues that affect the quality of life and people's lives every single day.
Thank you very much. I agree. And I always tell people we as a community compete for businesses, for opportunities. We compete for residents. People have a choice where to live.
Right.
And you want people to want to live in your community. That's what drives property values. That's what makes it a vibrant place. That's what enables the restaurants to thrive and succeed. It all comes together in local government. I always tell people, local government's got to do 2 things. If we do something, it has to be effective and efficient, and we have to enable the private sector to succeed, and that's what we've done.
That's fantastic. And you talked a little bit earlier about service. Obviously, it's a quality that you passed on to your children. It's one you live every single day by being a city council member.
Thank you.
Why did you decide to run for state delegate and continue that service?
I decided I didn't really intend to do this, to be very honest. And the thought of spending the rest of my life in Richmond is terrible, terrifying. But one of the things I learned as a city councilman is decisions made in Richmond do have consequences at the local level.
Right.
And in particular, our delegate has made a couple of decisions that were, I think, extremely harmful, potentially very harmful to this community. And I just couldn't, in good conscience, sit there and accept that. Because, I mean, these were, I don't want to say be overly dramatic, but these were really, really big decisions involving millions of dollars and thousands of jobs in people's futures, in the community's future. And I felt as though if no one is willing to step up, I've got to, because this is really, really important to my community.
Absolutely. And you are, as we've talked about, so involved in your community. And I know you've been on the doors for years connecting to your constituents, but also making sure there's strong connectivity in your city and the surrounding areas.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what you're hearing, what the challenges are that people are concerned about right now?
The number one thing I hear, and it's 90% of the people I talk to, is transportation. If you live in Manassas in western Prince William County, if you're fortunate, you have high quality jobs in the area, but most people have to commute. And that inevitably means 66 or 28 or combination or the VRE. And there is no good answer. It's horrible. And one of the things that I've been able to do in my service is I sit on the Council of Governments Board of Directors. So I know from that, there's another 1.5 million people that are going to move to our community in the next 20 years.
Right.
How are we going to move those people? Where are they going to live? Those are the critical challenges we face. And if we don't solve transportation, the next Micron or the next Amazon won't come here. They'll go somewhere else. And so where I'm talking to people, it's not so much commuting to DC. It's mobility within Northern Virginia. So it's the person needs to get from Manassas to Reston or Springfield to Chantilly. Those are the issues that really, I mean, 100% of the people are just like, it's terrible and we've got to do something to fix it.
That's incredible, because you do hear a lot about the commute to DC, just
Yes.
given how close we are.
Sure.
But just the connectivity between cities and
Yes.
localities in Northern Virginia has even
Yes.
become difficult. And tell us a little bit about what your district looks like, because you are in a prime location where you have residents that are traveling to other parts of
Sure.
Virginia and DC. Tell us a little bit about what your district looks
The
like.
district, fortunately, is geographically very compact. I can't claim that it is a gerrymandered district.
Sure.
But it is the city of Manassas in the area immediately west of Manassas, which is typically the Brentsville district of the Prince William County. It goes almost to Lake Manassas and almost to Gainesville. So it's about 90 to 100,000 people. So it's, again, geographically very compact. It's very diverse. The Prince William County part in particular is sort of typical, 1990s and on suburbia. Manassas is evolved, so Manassas has its old historic core. It has new parts. It has an industrial area. It obviously has Micron and large employers like that. So it's like I said, it's very diverse from that perspective, but it shares the commonalities that people, again, are concerned about transportation, they're concerned about jobs, they're concerned about public education.
And it's growing rapidly.
And it's growing rapidly.
It is. It is. Now, if you're elected, what will be your top priorities that you will champion for your community in Richmond?
Well, I have always talked about the three big things, which again is quality jobs, just for today and for our opportunities for our children going forward, is transportation. We have to be bold. We are forever doing incremental approaches to transportation. I mean, since you and I have lived in Northern Virginia, how many times have we tried to fix 66?
Right.
Yeah, and so that we've got to be bold in this funding of public education. It's no one will sit there and say teachers deserve less money.
Right.
Well, then we have to have the political courage to be able to deliver the money to them that they need and deserve. But beyond that, there's a couple of other challenges that face us as a broader community that need to be addressed and are high on my list. Number one is climate change. It is a real and existential threat to our way of life, our well-being. And if the federal government is pulling back or refusing to acknowledge climate change, then it's incumbent upon the states to take action. We've got to move forward. So that's actually the first thing I would have proposed in Richmond is Virginia joining with other states in the interstate compact modeled on the California climate rules to try to force a national standard for climate change. We've got to take significant action. We've got to do it today. The other thing becomes equality. ERA is still an issue in Virginia.
Yes.
We had an occasion on the Manassas City Council a few months ago where a resolution came up, and I had 2 council members vote against it.
Wow.
And I take very seriously the fact that government is for everyone, and in the law, both as it's used and as government is applied, doesn't distinguish between race or color or sex or who you love or nationality. Everyone is deserving to be treated equally, and we need to make sure that takes place.
Absolutely. And as a mother of 2 young little girls, thank you for championing the ERA, because we should be working hard to make sure that our state is inclusive for everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
So thank you. And I know there's a lot of activism right now. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing, what the community is doing to really connect with your neighbors right now.
With our neighbors, in particular for the campaign, it is an amazing amount of, frankly, door knocking and meeting people. I've told people that I have knocked on multiples of doors than I did in my 3 council races combined.
Sure.
It is a wholly different beast, and you're very well aware of that. It's been fascinating. I've gone to neighborhoods and met people that I had never been to, and had just wonderful conversations, and that becomes an energizer to me, whether they agree with me or not. To be able to have a civil discourse it becomes a really critical component of who we are as a people. And I tell people, I say, listen, you may not always agree with me, but I'll listen to you.
That's great. Thank you for being with us. We'll be right back.
This is the story of a boy who is very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. It made him feel uncomfortable. One day, he found out he had something called autism. His family got him help, and slowly, he learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies. Selfie, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
Being a dad is an adventure full of special moments.
A cruise!
Surprise!
Unexpected moments.
I got this.
And even awkward moments.
Okay, Dad, thank you.
But every moment you spend with your kids, even the smallest moments, can make the biggest impact on your child's life. So take a moment to be a dad today.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys. And then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Lindsey Davis Stover, and I'm thrilled to have with me tonight Irina Khanin, who's running for state delegate in District 29. Irina, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And tell us a little bit about District 29. What areas does that encompass?
It is all of the city of Winchester, most of Frederick County, and a small portion, 4 precincts of Warren County, which is going down into the town of Front Royal.
Beautiful, beautiful part of the state.
It is.
Absolutely. And tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me how you came to decide to run for state delegate.
I am an immigrant myself. I'm a child of immigrants. My parents came to the United States 30 years ago. And I've had some experiences that I think gave me a real insight into some of the struggles that families have, immigrant and non. And by the way, our district has significant, people don't know that, immigrant population in Winchester specifically. And not only just generally kind of general struggles of immigrant families that they face with the relocation and finding jobs and language, but also my dad turned out when we came here actually had cancer, so he didn't really get to spend a whole lot of time living in the United States. But in the course of dealing with his disease, I came in direct contact with pre-existing conditions, something I've never heard of before, because when my dad first started, before he started working, when he first arrived, he was on Medicaid, and then he was on a different insurance, which denied him coverage when they diagnosed him. So this is something that's been on my mind ever since then, that it made no sense, that it was terribly scary for somebody with serious condition to have something like this. And I said, I never forgot, I wanted to help people. Primarily, it started with thinking of healthcare, but then it expanded to other areas too. I have 2 kids in public schools. I think we have very, very good public schools in Winchester, but in Virginia in general, we are actually underpaying our teachers quite a bit. The most recent study that I've seen shows that the gap between other professionals, college-educated professionals, and teachers, Virginia is 3rd from the bottom, and that is not the place to be. Wow. So those are the reasons that I want to run. This country has given me so much. I've had great education, product of a public law school, and I just want to give back, and I want to make people's lives better.
That's
as best that I can.
Well, and you hit on teacher pay, and it's really been a theme we've heard all evening. And I think it's exciting as the daughter of a school teacher that we're really focusing on ensuring that we pay our teachers not only what they earn, but what they deserve. And can you talk a little bit about your priorities, what you will champion, whether it's teacher pay or other areas, if elected?
So I would, since we're talking about teaching, they're really close together, healthcare and teaching. I think that I would support public education in any way I can as a legislator. As we already talked about teacher pay, it's important. It is not that it defines everything, of course, but we have to pay our teachers enough that they don't have to live the places where they teach to go live somewhere else far away and commute. We have to pay them enough that they don't have to get side jobs to allow their families to get by. And in general, it's such an important job. I mean, it's one of the most important jobs. They're only teaching the next generation of everything. Future scientists, future teachers, future bankers, future doctors. So I think that's pretty high up on my list of priorities, together with healthcare. And I explained already why. We luckily have passed Medicaid expansion finally in Virginia after 4 years of not doing that, and 2,500 people in our district alone have gotten coverage.
2,500 people.
Yeah,
That's
and it's growing, that
incredible.
number. So that's something that is gonna, I would like for it to continue growing. I would like to protect this achievement from any attacks on it if such do arise, which I do expect that will happen. Not ever hearing the word pre-existing condition also. Also, pretty high on the list is infrastructure. Route 81, you don't have to go very far to hear from the people who live in my district. The issues are big. We know that the study has been done. It took a year. We know that it's more dangerous to drive through the section of 81 than other parts of 81.
Right.
And not much has been done until finally, the session was session of inaction, and then finally the governor turned this around and said, we need to have higher tax, we need to fix this. So as a legislator, I will be monitoring this because I'm not sure there's enough money through just the gas tax, but we need to make sure that our roads are fixed and that they're safe. And that's another thing that would be high on my list. And campaign finance reform. Virginia is one of 5 states that doesn't have any limits on contributions. That does not make a whole lot of sense to me. I think we need to fix this so that we even the playing field, and that would be also something that I would fight. Research first, see what suggestions have been made on how to fix this, and support the reasonable reform in this area.
Well, you hit on a point that isn't often talked about, maybe not even talked about enough, as campaign finance reform. Why is that so important to you, and why is it so important to preserving and protecting our democracy?
I'll give you an example. So I am first-time candidate, and I only I started several months ago, but I've already have almost 2 reporting periods under my belt. The very first time that we reported what we fundraised, I was very proud of the number of supporters that we got, donors. It was showing a really wide base of support, which is what you want, I think, from your legislator. And it was, 70, 80 individual donors, which I know doesn't sound like a lot of people for some districts, but in our district, it's pretty significant. My opponent had 2 individual donors, but he outraised me. Why? Because of the types of donations that he was getting. And who is he representing in the end? Who do we want to represent? I think we want to represent individual people. And I think that not having any limits creates all kinds of inequities and makes it so difficult for citizens, for people, for voters who live in the district to be heard. So I think we absolutely need to move it up on the list and try to fix this problem. Virginia we do so well in so many areas, but teacher pay, campaign finance reform being one of only 5 without limits, that has got to be fixed. And
absolutely. And you hit on a very important point when you talked about transportation. So many times we talk about the gridlock in transportation, but you actually touched on the safety piece of that. And safety is such an important issue when it comes to transportation to your district. And can you talk a little bit more about that? Because you would be able to not only champion different alternative routes of transportation, but you'd be down in Richmond championing safety as well.
I have 2 girls, 15 and 10-year-old, and my 15-year-old is going to be getting into getting the driver's license world, giving me heart attack in the process. And I'm thinking I will survive this somehow. But honestly, I'm terrified of thinking of her driving on 81. Where we live, people try to avoid this road at all costs possible. The study that was done by VDOT that took us a year to do showed, yes, highways, it's dangerous to drive. It's dangerous to drive with trucks. But it's disproportionately dangerous compared to other sections of 81. And that's something that we need to just keep inside and not forget that, yes, it is important to make sure that it's a smooth commercial corridor, but it's also very important to make sure that those roads are safe, and they're just not wide enough, especially specifically 81, don't have the good exit ramps or areas, and this just got to be fixed.
Absolutely. And we've talked a lot about the energy right now all throughout Northern Virginia. And I know the area that you're running to represent has incredible energy right now and activism and some of the most dedicated grassroots supporters who are knocking on doors every single day, writing postcards, making phone calls. Can you talk a little bit about that level of activism in your part of the district?
Over years, I volunteered in a number of campaigns, all levels, from local, state to presidential campaigns. I don't think I've ever seen that level of optimism, activism. People come to me without me even reaching out. We're doing this. We're writing postcards for you. They self-select. They self-organize. So motivated, and it's just so exciting. I think that people really truly are realizing that they can change things. There are so many opportunities that have been lost in the last 20 years. We're not talking about last couple of years in Virginia. That I think people realize this. They know how important state and local politics are. They feel it. They know it's possible. They know it's a lot of hard work, but they're ready to do it. And they don't think of this anymore as this is something we do 1 month before the election. It is almost a full-time thing. You wake up in the morning on the weekend and you go canvass.
That's right.
Whoever the candidate du jour is for you. So it's pretty exciting, and I think it's great to be running in this kind of atmosphere with those kind of volunteers.
That is great. And I know you are already on the doors, you're already making phone calls, you're already being active, incredibly active in your community. Can you tell our viewers where they can go to learn more about you and about the race in particular?
Sure. The website is Irina, my first name, IRINA, #4, delegate.com. You can sign up to volunteer over there. You can find out about the current events. We would love for you to check out our positions on different issues. We're constantly updating it so that people can find out more. And Twitter and Instagram. I'm on Facebook, the same Irina for Delegate. Please visit multiple times. You'll find different information there every time.
It's so important that we all stay up to date on the candidates running for office and our local elections. And I just want to say thank you for running. Thank you for the sacrifice that you and your family make for putting your name on the ballot. It's so important. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, too, for being with us tonight. And I want to end the show by congratulating our producer, Ben Zoll, and the entire crew here at Inside Scoop for winning the Community Service Award 2 nights ago at the Fairfax County Democratic Committee Gala. This is an incredibly dedicated crew that works hard to ensure that we all stay informed on the issues. Thank you so much. See you next time.